Hi everyone, this is the Shop Stool Podcast, episode 8 of season 3. As always, I'm going to start by introducing my two co-hosts. Joey, how are you tonight?
I'm good, despite a almost cold thing happening, but otherwise good.
Ah, right, yeah. And Bryan, how are you?
I'm all right. Yep, just getting ready for another Victorian COVID lockdown by the looks of things.
Oh yeah, sounds like it.
It's funny, Joey, you mentioned you're not feeling well. You've got 2 kids, right? Did you find after number 2 that you guys would get sick more often?
No, this is probably the first cold I've had since our second came along.
Right. Like this household has zero immunity. Because one person gets sick, gets the next person sick, right. And it just rotates. My kids are always sick, and I don't know what to do. My wife, I think, Jamie's now sick as well. It's just endless.
It does help that we don't send our kids to official learning centres, so we're not exposed to quite so much of the bad things. But yeah, that seems to be over here at the moment. It seems to be bad in the sense that last winter everyone was locked down, and so
there's no immunity
now there's a lack of immunity for kids, and there's a whole bunch of kids in hospital with some lung issue that's going around, and the government's getting very anxious about that. So
I actually saw that on the news because this was when Gray came down with something. I think it's called RSV. Yeah. And someone said to me, that's right, because last week we were packed, the car was packed, ready to go to get Gray in at about 2 o'clock in the morning because he had a fever of 39.5. So we called one of these health lines, and they were like, yeah, at that level, you're on your way to the emergency department. And someone suggested to me, it could be RSV, and because it's really going around in New Zealand.
Yep.
But anyway. I love the medical corner of our woodworking show. Yeah. It's great.
We know what we're talking about.
Feels like we've done one every single bloody fortnight for the last year.
Medical corner.
Yeah. So, the last time we talked, Joey, you'd had some progress on the house. You'd found a spot. We did a Google search Google Maps search after the episode and had a look at it. So it's a really cool location. Has there been much change since then?
Well, we have officially sold the workshop, which was good because it never actually went on the market. The real estate agent knew a guy who wanted to buy a workshop. So we're just waiting on some official lease agreements, and we'll lease it back off the guy for a year. And so that gives us a year.
Now we're going to enter the real estate part of our podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, hang on, was that a real estate agent doing their job efficiently? Is that what just happened?
It seemed like it.
Jesus.
Do you not feel like if you had put it out to market, you may have got a better offer?
Well, we got what we asked for.
Okay.
So can't really argue much. And we had a number that as long as we were over this number, we figured we could do what we have to do with rebuilding and stuff. And we got more than that number, so we are happy.
I guess that's a good way to look at it, yeah. When we sold our house in Adelaide, there was, from my understanding, is that real estate agents can't pit buyers against each other. They can't make them one up each other.
No,
you're not allowed to do that. But they can go back to a buyer and say, "Look, you're not the highest offer on the table. Just putting it out there, see what you can do." And our house, we had about 3 different buyers, all vying for it, and it slowly increased like that.
Yes, it can happen. I'm not sure. I think they push the limits about what they do legally sometimes, but. I think at some point someone just needs to say some numbers, and then you could say, "Oh, I'm in or I'm out." But anyway, the nature of the game. So we're dealing with the same thing, kind of. Where we're trying to sell our house at the same time, which is going very slowly. It's not really working like everyone else is selling their house in about 4 days, and ours is just sitting around at the moment. So we need to change up some of what's happening with that, because we only have a year now to buy the property and build the workshop, and get out of our current place. And it looks like we're probably going to lose the property we have an offer on, because it's conditional on selling our house that I'm living in now, and there's the time limit's going to run out before this place gets sold, and we've just been told that someone else has put an offer on the house, another offer, so they'll go to the top of the queue, and these things happen. So we're just kind of doing the crossing our fingers and hoping everything works out, really.
Is the market over there quite, you said people selling their houses in 4 days, is it quite hot?
Yeah, also we had been looking for property for a while, but just getting ready to put ourselves on the market, and we would go and would see something pop up, inquire about it by the end of the day, and then like the next day, it's under 4 offers, and do you want to add another offer? And you're like, well, not really. And then the listings disappear off the internet pretty quick.
It's awful buying in that type of market, eh?
And so
Because you are just under the pump. Great for a seller, but terrible for a buyer.
So unless we have, really what we have to do is wait for a house to sell, have actual cash money in our pocket, and then just throw it down on the doorstep and say, take our money right now. And so that's probably what we're going to have to do. But we've got a couple of options up our sleeves, but kind of worst case, last resort type things about where we might shift the workshop to if it gets a bit tight time-wise. Because the obvious thing is that we just lease for another year in our existing workshop, but we don't. If we spend that year's lease, that starts making budgets very tight.
A house budget.
So that's not really an option. So we're just plodding on and hoping things happen.
Cool, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. It's kind of bittersweet because we have sold this thing. We made some good money off our workshop property, and it's a little bit down, feeling a bit down that the house hasn't moved. But anyway.
If anybody's listening in Auckland wants to buy a house, direct your inquiries to Joey.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, you go.
No, I was just going to go. That's where I'm at. Other than that, I'm making a whole lot of things with wood.
That's cool because I'm in the garden doing landscaping, so I'm not doing wood. So
Yes.
Tell me what it's like.
Yeah, well, splintery, noisy, dusty, painty. I just took delivery of another van. There's a company, Maker and Son, who are an Australian company, and they make these really nice. I don't even know how to describe. They call them the most comfortable chairs in the world, and they have. So instead of a retail shop, they have a big van, and that it's fitted out, and they have one of these chairs in the back of the van, and the salesperson drives around and sells them out of the van. So they've got vans in Ireland, in California, Australia, and New Zealand. I think there's 3 in Australia now, and I'm just doing the second one for New Zealand. And so I just picked it up from the dealer, brand new van off the lot, and got to start fitting it out with cedar shingles and all sorts of things.
That's a quirky job.
Yeah, it's a weird one. So we've done one before, and pretty smooth. I actually got the job through a Instagram contact from Australia who had done the first one there, and then so he's subsequently done another 2, and now I'm on to my second. So it's an interesting job, working around weird curves. It's a bit like boat building kind of weirdness, but it's pretty straightforward, really.
And in terms of any, I guess, codes or regulation, I mean, would those even exist in that scenario?
Not like this. I mean, it's just all like putting plywood boxes in the back of a van and making them look pretty, essentially. Just like lining the walls, putting TNG on the roof and putting LED lights and carpet. And then all the walls are like cedar shingles, and that's about it. It's actually quite a bit of work putting all the shingles up.
We've talked about someone fitting out a car. Was it you, Brian?
It was probably, well...
Yeah, I did a combi.
Ah, that's right.
Yep. I think to date, the least profitable job I've ever worked on, I think.
Really?
Yeah, just all the templating of different curves.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was fun.
I priced this van, I priced it pretty hefty the first time round, and they were happy as for the price. And so this time round, I said it was the same, but cedar's gone up 30%, so that'll be the extra on top, and they were happy with that. So yeah, it's good actually. It's interesting doing it the same thing twice, like a year apart.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much of the original plans or measurements did you keep?
I actually kept templates for
good man.
Like a bunch of the difficult things, so I know where they are. I'm just going to dig them out and just pretty much throw them through the router, and all the ribs for the ceiling curve I've got the template for, which I can just smash them in.
Were you expecting to be doing a second one?
No, but they had talked about how many vans they had in California and Ireland,
right.
and I was like, well, if this is actually going to be a thing, I'll just make an extra one of these while I'm at it, and throw it up on the shelf. And so it's paid off at least. So
very good.
That's pretty cool.
And all the bitching and whining that we do about not getting clients through Instagram. You got a client through Instagram.
Interestingly, that was through another maker, and that wasn't actually the client, but yeah.
In a roundabout way.
Yeah.
So these cars are all around, just before we move off, these cars are all around the world. Aren't there slight variations between cars in different countries?
Yeah. So that was like the brief from this lady, the client, was like, these are the pictures from the one we've just had done in Australia. You have to make your one exactly the same. Like, and so I just got 1,000 pictures, and I ended up on the phone to the Australian maker, so I was really nervous about. I was like, how fussy is she going to be with exactly? So I'm like, I'm zooming in on all the pictures, trying to work out which piece of wood is going on top of which piece, and what's the spacing of the shingles, and like how big is the TNG there compared to what I can get here. And as it turns out, was never really the issue. She was just after a really nice job, which is what we did. So there's a little bit of leeway for differences, because the Australian vans have got no windows and the sliding doors, but our ones have windows and have glass. So
what type of van is it?
It's a Renault high top thing, quite reasonably. It's nice enough, and I think they've got the same vans in the rest of the world, but there are differences, and also differences in who can get what materials, because it seems like getting shingles in Australia is not easy.
So the shingles you just made out of plywood, or nah? No,
we can get Californian cedar shingles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you buy them by the bundle. It's like a 2 meter square bundle of shingles.
I don't think I've ever seen them before.
Yeah, they're really cool. I've used them previously back when I was a builder, so I had some idea of how to do it. But there was a bit of a COVID story in that I went to get some today, and oh no, we don't have any, and we're not going to have any for the next 3 months. But I got my guys to do some ringing around, and they actually found a container load of them sitting around. So I was like, good thing I asked. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's fun to work with shingles, and all the offcuts make really good kindling for the fire.
You're going to say something?
I was going to say, completely, I haven't talked to you about this, but I'm having a new website made, this is like way off topic. So I'm having a new website made, and they want a bunch of testimonials from clients, to say how good of super duper I am. And so I've been asked that before by web companies and stuff, and it's a pain in the butt to try and go and get. You imagine ringing up all your old clients out of the blue and just being like, "Hey, can you tell me really good things about myself?
Tell me how great I am."
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, God, this is terrible. So what these guys are genius. They offer this plan where I just need to give them a list of all the clients who will most likely give me good reviews, and they have a journalist ring them up and interview them for a minute. And then they record the call and then just, take a synopsis of the conversation. And then I get this report back with all these awesome testimonials from a third party, which is really cool because, I didn't actually solicit it personally. And
it's really
good. It's really good. And the testimonials are so awesome. It's so cool to hear, fly on the wall type conversation and read what people actually think about what you do and how you act. It's a really interesting kind of process to go through. And it was relatively, $500 for that service.
So that's part of the website design.
Yes.
Because it's funny, when I think of website design, I think of there's one guy who's coding away in HTML, building your website, and that's it. That's all the service is.
Yeah. So this website, I've had the same guys who've got my current website, but I had a 3-year plan where I just pay it off over 3 years, and then it ran out, and they're like, "Do you want to, we can reduce your payment down to minimal now, or we can revamp it and do it new." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's just do it new, or keep the payments as they are." So I do a 2-hour video conference with the head guy. And it goes through this whole checklist and what we want to achieve with it, and then he sends all that information to his crew who actually start making the website. But then also he gets the journalist involved to do all the phone calls, and then out of those 30 odd testimonials they get back, they then choose 6 or 7, and we did case studies to show all the problems that I had to solve and all that. Make it sound really good, but then they do an extra write-up of another 6 or 7 case studies, which make me sound really good. And
that is really good, because I always see testimonials on people's websites, and it's like, "Joey did a great job, Bob Sydney." And it's like, there's nothing believable about it, but the second that you're talking about them adding extra layers of detail and sort of treating a job as a case study, I think that's really interesting.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. So I'm kind of excited about how they're going to, because they want to rebrand my business essentially. So it'd be interesting to see what their proposal is and how it goes. So just a complete side topic there.
That's good. I've always directed customers, if they want to leave me a testimonial, just to do it on Google, to try to boost SEO that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always funny when you see other makers where they've had one bad client or one fake reviewer just absolutely destroy their Google rating, and there's nothing you can do to get it back.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
So please don't leave us negative reviews. Honest ones, yes. Negative ones, no.
You mentioned earlier about the you were talking about the material cost being higher at the moment.
Yeah.
I had a thought this week. We talked probably a couple months ago at this stage about building a carport and how I wanted to get into it. It turned out to be way more expensive than I wanted. And now we get into the point where the material costs, from what I've read, are plateauing. They're not getting more expensive. What do you guys think about the cost of materials in terms of it going down? Are we still 6 months, 12 months out? From the perspective of if I hold off on my renovation, or is it still completely unknown?
I think there's a big difference in what the material is. For
Well, I assume it's
example,
all gone up at whether it's steel or timber. It's all gone up slightly based on COVID.
yeah,
But they all go up at different rates, and whether
They're
they need
all
to
at
be
different
shipped
rates,
in,
and it's-
what the labour element of it is, the raw material costs, the warehousing costs.
So here there's a bunch, like, you can't get framing timber for housing. Like, it's people, I've got clients who are meant to be making cabinets for their house, which is being built, but they're still waiting for the frames to be delivered 4 months later because there's not enough timber supply.
Mm.
And I can't quite work that out because we had a lockdown, but it's not like that's still ongoing. It's like there's just, I think what it is just the massive demand for product, and everyone's buying small amounts at the same time, and it's just something that hasn't really happened before. People aren't necessarily buying more than their share. It's just more people doing it, and so that has an effect on price. For some reason, it becomes more expensive. I don't see why we don't really understand that. Where it should just kind of go on a waiting list.
Demand, isn't it? Just supply, demand, and it's somebody is cashing in at the other end.
I think anything that's imported, like here, is a bunch of stuff that's imported to New Zealand, and I don't think the prices will ever go down again. I can't see shipping rate companies suddenly saying, "Oh, let's take that 300% back off the price that we just increased, and then we'll go back to what we used to earn." I can't see that happening.
No, but surely they can't with the increase that the cost of living just will not match that for the next 5 to 10 years. From what I remember, I don't deal so much with this sort of supply.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm asking you. You've seen, both of you guys have seen the cost increase. Has it plateaued? Or is it still continuing to increase?
It's hard to say because for me, like my suppliers get a bunch of containers in, and then we have a price, and as long as that stock remains, and the next order, I know that the shipping cost has gone up for the next order, but that might not cycle through my timber yard for another 6 or 7 months before I actually get to that shipment, which is going to have an increased price. So it's hard to know.
Here you go, Robin. Here's an example. So I always take photos in timber yards to get the lengths. Well, like while I'm quoting a project and I'm in the yard for something else, I'll take a photo of the lengths and then come back the next day and sort of try to work out. But so we've got September 2018, 120 by 30 black butt for $19 a linear meter. That is now $33 a linear meter.
Wow.
Yes.
So why is a native timber gone up in price?
That's a very good question.
Will your sawmills?
They can.
Were the sawmills there held up?
I mean, I suppose there would be issues with freight and delivery and labour shortages and lockdowns and things like that. But to go up, that's what, just over 2 years, two and a half years, to go up by like 50%.
Yeah,
it's quite a lot. But no, I can't explain it. Maybe we should get Andy from Urban Salvage back on. He can talk us through.
That would be interesting.
It would, yeah. But no, I don't see them going down either, Robin. I think prices are here to stay, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so in that case, get the reno done now. There's no real point in waiting. Because you may have I guess you may have the stock come in, but yeah.
If you want it and you've got the money, just do it now because it's not going to get any cheaper.
It's never going to get cheaper from day to day.
No.
And with building work, typically, I think you'll find that labor costs these days are probably more than material costs. Mm-hmm. So it's not as big of a jump, I think.
Interesting. I'll keep that in mind.
And there's still the hardware shortages here as well. Like
Oh, yeah.
I saw Julian from Glen Cross Woodworks. I don't know if you know Julian, but he got like the last set of undermount high fillet thrower runners
really?
I think in Australia. So yeah. And
it's interesting.
I don't know what the restock time on them are, whether they get them back in on a weekly basis, monthly basis, who knows, but yeah.
Yeah. Supply for that has all been pretty good, because when it ran out the last time, all my suppliers kind of sent out emails saying we've sent out gigantic orders from our suppliers, and it's all come in now, and so they're like overstocked, which is great. And so they've tried to get ahead of the delay issue with a lot of the hardware, and so far so good. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah. And what have you been working on, Joey?
Excuse me.
This is a hell of an intro.
I've been working on this bug bed job. I took this on because it was a strange job, and so this poor teenager has been stuffed into a room not much bigger than a prison cell. It's such a small bedroom, and so we got to put. Luckily, it's a big old house. It's got like a 2.9 meter ceiling. So we're putting like a bed at eye level, about 1,500 high, and a desk underneath, and then there's this weird little space at the foot of the bed, and I've had to incorporate a wardrobe, the ladder to get up to the bed. Each rung of the ladder is actually a shelf, a deep shelf, so it's kind of 2-in-1. There's a cupboard next to it, and some really awkward dead space at the top, at the foot of the bed, at the far end where you can't really get to it. I've made this giant pull-out drawer on like 900 mil long runners, so you can kind of use the full width of the bed, which is an 1,100 wide or something. So it's just lots of parts scattered around the workshop, because it's we can't really put it together until we're in the room and start screwing it to the walls and stuff. But it's a bit of a strange one, because even though I had a 3D model of exactly how everything went together, when we started trying to cut things, and I was like, how does this actually work? Like, this piece of wood's going to come up behind this piece, and then this other piece is going to come across this piece, and then it was very confusing. Is
it plywood? Or
yeah.
And it's just going to be painted, or?
Yeah, painted plywood, and carcasses are like laminate on plywood. Mm-hmm. And that was a good I say interesting. It was funny in that we had just cut the desktop out of an HPL on birch ply, and the client really wanted a corner desk with a curved kind of radius in the corner desk. So we just CNC'd that out, literally finished cutting it, and she texted me and said, can we change it from white to grey? And it's like, well, no, we just cut the sheet up. So, and then it was like, well, how much is it going to cost to change it? And then it was like, okay, we won't do that. I was actually surprised. I was like, okay, what's it going to be, the cost of a sheet of ply? And this product is like $270 a sheet or something. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, it might be that much. But then I worked out how much it's going to cost to get that one sheet to me, as opposed to the whole job lot, and then the day for us to re-CNC it. And it got pretty darn expensive. So I was like, nope. Sorry?
That's not the only job you've been working on. There's an even more important job that you've been working on in the workshop that I saw on Instagram. And you'd be a terrible dad if you forgot that job.
Yes, that was fun. Like, Theo's just turned 6. He's been nagging at me, like, when can I come and work with you? And I'm like, that's super cool. He wants to be a furniture maker. So we took off last Sunday, whatever it was, and we just happened to be at the workshop for picking up some whatever stuff. And he's like, can we make something? And I was like, okay, sure. And he said, let's make a chair. And I was like, oh my God.
Could you pick something more complicated?
I was like, God, a chair? Why do you want a chair? Come on. And I'm like, just straight away look at my watch. It was like 2:00, and I'm like, we're never going to get a chair made. Like, this is outrageous. But we managed it. Like, I just jumped into the wood pile, grabbed some stuff out, and we threw it through the thicknesser. And I immediately just was like, how can I make a chair with the fewest pieces of wood? Like, that was my design criteria. Like, how can we make the legs do as many things as they can at once, so I don't have to like put lots of pieces of wood together? So yeah, we came up with that. Came up with this kind of design where everything's floating on the legs, and it's kind of cool. I actually kind of like the idea of just modifying it and making it a bit more sleek. And
I really like that design. Really liked it.
Yeah, I had bigger plans
is the seat
for it.
Floating in the leg.
Well, yeah, like the seat is like one just piece of oak, and we just like put angled notches in it, and the legs just kind of sit in those notches and screw in. And because the legs are at an angle, the seat can't slide down.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
It's wedged in place, and the screws are just holding it in from falling off the sides of the seat.
So I've just made a high chair for my boy, and I went the other way around where I routed some notches in the legs, and then you slide the seat in.
Yeah.
And the benefit of that, because it's a high chair, you can then make multiple levels to move it up and down. Yeah. But yeah, the fact that you did that, from 2 PM.
Yeah.
That's pretty insane. I think a lot of people would be happy with that.
Yeah.
It's funny. I remember you telling me about Theo many episodes ago, telling me how he didn't like the sound of the impact driver.
Yeah.
And here he is in the workshop with the thing running.
He's in charge of the drill, man. He's his finger on the trigger, and bam. Next thing you know, your screws coming out the other side.
Let go, Theo. Let go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Have you made anything at all, Brian?
Yeah. I've had a busy couple of weeks doing built-ins. So I've got one that's kind of installed in 2 sections so that I could install it. It's like there's 3 components to it, and I've installed 2 of the components so then I could get a final measure for the 3rd one.
Yeah.
Because it's not like it can be up on feet and have adjustability to it. It's on a very, very thin kickboard on the bottom, so it sort of needs to be perfect. And I think originally this show we were going to talk about tradies and their lack of accuracy, but that's kind of it. So yeah, obviously none of the walls are square, so it's trying to account for all that in a large, heavy built-in unit has been lots of fun. And don't want any trim around it, and so I've been working on that. I got the design signed off on my 2 tambour entertainment units.
I was going to ask, how's that going?
Yeah, so finished the documentation of it last night, and collecting the timber tomorrow. So it's going to be my first time using Tasmanian blackwood, which is going to be interesting. Originally we were going to go spotted gum, but kind of happy going blackwood, just something a bit easier to work and a bit lighter and a bit richer in colour.
I saw someone on Instagram, I don't know who it was, but they posted a picture of a whole bunch of different pieces of blackwood, and it just made this the colour variant is so outrageous. It went from like lime green through to like walnut dark brown, and like it must be, I don't know, do you know if the colour changes throughout each board, or is it board
sapwood to heartwood, it has massive, I would say probably the most of any sort of commercially available Australian timbers. That's what terrifies me a little bit.
Because I've used blackwood before, but when the stuff I had, I was like, well, it's nice, but there's no real difference between this and American walnut, because it's like just consistently a brown colour.
Yeah.
But from those pictures I saw, like, it's wildly different.
Yeah. See, my issue is I don't work with imported, so I'm like, do I go with something that's as close to walnut as possible, like in terms of the tones, or do I start to bring in a few of the paler I don't like the greens in Blackwood. It's just something that's always...
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't suit my eye. So yeah, I think I'll probably look for the paler tones and then into chocolatey walnut. But yeah, that's a pretty good one. What else? Finally finished a memory box that I've been waiting on a client to tell me what they wanted engraved on it for quite a while.
Okay.
So that's done. I got a death threat from a junkie leaving my workshop on Friday, which is pretty nice. That's quite a good story. So you know that I work in an old munitions storage thing.
Yeah.
So I drove out of the car park Friday night, pitch black, and I've got to go through a council car park to get out. And it's 2 sets of gates, so it's like farm style, open one, drive through, close, open the next one. So as I'm in between the gates, I hear somebody shouting and effing and blinding about, you stole this, you stole that. And I'm like, oh God, who's this guy on? And then I noticed that there's nobody else. There's no other cars parked in the car park, and he's shouting at me. And then he starts making his way over, saying he's going to shoot me if I don't give him back his tools from when he worked in the munitions factory. And I'm like, this guy's about 45, and I'm pretty sure the munitions factory closed 50 years ago, 45 years ago. I'm like, brilliant. And anyway, then he starts screaming in front of the windscreen. He's got, I don't know, 2 metal bars in his hands or something. And I'm like, right, Jesus, right, I'm just going to drive on.
Shit.
So I go to drive on, turn the ignition to my car, and I've got a flat battery.
Shit. Oh my God.
And that's when the suspense music started.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit.
This shit.
Yeah, so that wasn't the best end of the week. But we
That's funny.
managed
So
to...
how did it de-escalate?
So he then went back and hopped in his van to smoke a little bit more meth. And so I rang my wife, and she sent her legendary sister to come down, and I made her stay in the car while I jumped before this guy had finished his next round of meth. Yeah.
I like how she sends her sister down to sort you out. That was awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Miranda, if you're listening. But yeah, so that was the low light of the week, and then obviously the highlight of the week was England losing the soccer. That was good. So that put a big smile on my face.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've got quite a bit of work on at the minute, so that's good. It kind of tends to be the way things work in Victoria. I always find July, August tend to be the busiest times.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's usually the opposite here, because it's just dead middle of winter, and people, I don't know, usually it's just like nothing on until people start seeing, Christmas is coming up, we better get it done before Christmas.
Is your end of financial year end of June?
It's March,
So
April.
I always find that there's a flood of jobs coming just
That's
before
true.
end of financial year, and as well, like, we're probably like climatically a little bit obviously different to where you are, that in summer people don't spend much time in their houses, so in winter they're looking at their decor more, and I find that's when the bulk of my work comes in.
Yeah, conversely, I suppose at this year and last year, I suppose it's somewhat last year, it's just been non-stop.
Yeah.
Like, again, work has just been pouring in, so I'm like I'm 2 or 3 months ahead suddenly again, so I went down to like a week ahead, and now in the course of a week a couple of big jobs come in, and that's it. There's 2 months gone, so
It's awesome.
it's great, but again, starts becoming stressful when you have a long wait list, but because any delays start pushing everything out, and it's a bit stressful.
But do you still not find that clients have got a little bit more patience to them now? After
most people are happy. I just like to be on time. If I tell someone I'm going to be on this date, which leads to the topic I was going to talk about, but we probably don't have time.
The show got totally sabotaged somehow.
So if I say I'm going to be there next Wednesday, I will be there.
Yeah.
And
I suppose the scale of the jobs as well, Joey, like it's fine if they're physically small jobs that you could sort of dip in and out between different jobs, but if a big job hits hold and you're waiting for something, It's not like
Yeah.
you can fill the workshop up with the next job.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. Like,
Yeah.
again, with like any big cabinetry, kitchens are the worst.
Yeah.
Like, once it's made, it really needs to get out of there, because
Yeah.
where am I going to put it?
Yeah.
As
No.
it turns out, I just put it in the corner of my workshop, and I work around it for 6 months. But oh my god!
Yeah.
Bryan, you were saying earlier you were finishing up the documentation for the timbre door or the timbre cabinet. What is that? What documentation do you get?
So I'm sure I've been through this before, but I'll go again. So I would generally sell the idea to a client through a sketch in terms of just the concept. Then I'll do a 3D model, render it, and add dimensions. So that went sketch to the client. The client asked for a few minor changes to it. So originally they'd asked for something symmetrical, and I don't really love symmetry. I'm sure I've been through this, but I always like a point of interest to be offset center. And then when I sent them the symmetrical one, they're like, "Oh, could you just extend it a wee bit more and have it?" I'm like, "Oh, sure, awesome."
Yeah.
So then it's updating that 3D model and then just getting into documentation set. So just plans, sections, elevations, working out
right.
working
Okay,
out
I'm with you.
grain directions and things, because there's perpendicular there's perpendicular planes. It's like a sort of a C section that wraps if you looked at it in section, and then there's fins that obviously support the C. So it's trying to work out how I'm gonna do it grain wise, and which bits need to be veneered, shop veneered plywood, and which bits are going to be solid timber, and then working out the software that I use generates a volumetric cut list for me. So then take that, go to the timber yard. So that's tomorrow morning's job.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you complete the documentation, and then does that go off to the clients?
Nah,
Because that
they never
seems
see
like
it.
that,
They never.
yeah, I was going to
they
say,
never
because
see it.
they don't need to know that.
No, that's for me. And again, that's kind of going back to when I was asking Joey, did he keep the jigs? I always find that if on the rare occasions when I work on something in the workshop without a set of drawings, I will always learn things on it. I don't know, it could be the precise fit of a sliding dovetail or something like that, and I will never note down the numbers. Whereas the second I have a physical set of drawings in a clipboard hanging on my workshop, I can always go back and refer to them further down the line. So, I figured because I'd never done a tambour door before, working out the tolerances and radiuses of the corner and having it all set on a drawing was worthwhile.
Are you going to do a complete full-scale mock-up?
No.
Just to make sure that your plan is going to work?
No, I don't think so.
Going to go for it?
I think what I'll do is I will... I've done a computer model and checked the width of the strips to the radius. I'll probably mock up one corner and just have the strips of the tambour. Still trying to work out how to get the door in there when it's wall hung. But I think I've got a solution that should work.
Cool.
Yeah. But no, I'm excited to get working on that one. So yeah, hopefully get on to gluing it up next week, I think. And
So you just got a week of planing boards and gluing boards up?
pretty much letting it just season in my workshop a little bit, and then there's going to be a bit of faffing about with the joinery, but and then I've got a few other small jobs, star map tables and things like that to work around while that's all happening. And then I need to get the second half of this big plywood built-in installed as well, and a load of welding to do for a banquet bench. Oh my god. Yeah. Well, so long as we don't go into lockdown, we're good.
So welding, is that something you do? You don't send it off?
No, I do it. I do it.
I didn't realize you knew how to weld.
Yeah. Badly.
Yeah.
But not badly.
You did that island job.
Yeah. Not badly, but slowly. Slowly is my problem. So yeah, if I get commissioned to do multiple sets of tables, I have a welder that I can bring in, and it just makes financial sense for me to do it. Yeah. Whereas if it's a one-off, particularly like that island bench where it needed lots of weird little sliding mechanisms. I nearly found it easier to do that myself, so that I could test things as opposed to having to do. Because my welder is brilliant, but he needs the full technical drawings, and the amount of time that it would take to do entire technical drawings of that, I was like, yeah, this is the time where it might be best to botch something up, and then produce the drawings. Like I said, to have a record of it, I'll produce the drawings after I found something that worked. That's what I did. But yeah, I do a bit of welding. Yeah, it's good. Good to keep warm in winter.
To change topics again.
Yep.
Here's a bit of a brainstorm. I was asked to design a 4 meter long, 1.4 meter wide outdoor table.
Whoa.
That's an interesting dimension.
Can you tell me how to do it?
With lots of legs and rails.
Long.
My initial thought was like, oh my god, 4 meters. And then I was like, well, Nathan Day does like those 4 meter long, what do you call torsion box tables. Yeah. And I was like, well, so he can do it in one span, but that's indoor. Like he couldn't probably get away with a torsion box outside.
Nah.
But so you could do it in a span, and so then so it's possible I can get some 4 meter long clear macrocarpa. But I was like, then I've got to make a 4 meter long, 1.4 meter wide tabletop, which is just asking for trouble. It seems way too big.
Why can't you do a torsion box outdoors?
It's all got to be glued together, and I just can't see, even if I use like Gorilla Glue, I just can't see, or epoxy possibly. But
the issue as well is like you need the water to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So if it's a solid like top with veneers on it, it's just going to peel. And
well, my first thought was, even if I made 5mm veneers, and epoxied them to some like marine plywood, those veneers are going to want to swell. Yeah. They're going to probably pop off the ply, or rip the veneers off the marine ply underneath it. Yeah. And the glue will come away with it. And so I was like, kind of ruled out veneering it pretty early on.
And it's got to be a solid timber top.
That's what he wants, a flat top, which is, number one no for outdoor tables. You don't have a flat top on it. But I entertained the idea, and so I came up with a plan. It cost it came out at about $9,500 for that, plus 4 bench seats.
But that including 4 bench seats?
Yeah.
In macrocarpa?
That was in macrocarpa. Yeah, it was in macrocarpa, because I wanted to do it in Iroko, which is the African teak-like timber. But the price of that is so outrageous. it like took the material cost to like $6,000 or something. So I was like, okay, let's just like come down a step, because he said it's going under a roof. Mostly under a covered area. Right. So I was like, okay, macrocarpa with some good protection is probably going to be okay, and that's why I was okay with having a flat tabletop, because it's going to have a roof on it. It's not really going to have pooling water on it when it rains, and it's not going to have direct sun necessarily, So it's like, it's semi-protected. As long as we allow for the top to move a heck of a lot, we're probably going to be okay.
And it's freestanding?
Yeah, freestanding. So I ended up making, he wanted, the classic kind of barn X legs. And he wanted them really big and chunky, so I made them like 150 square legs. Oh. And typically on an X leg table, you would have a bar across the top of the X, and then the tabletop would sit on top of that, and you would screw up through to hold the tabletop in place. But I made that bar on top of the X be flush with the tabletop, and you'd have a leg at each end and a leg in the middle, and so the tabletop is straight away split into two 2 meter long sections, just so I didn't have to deal with the length.
How thick is the top?
And so 50mm. It was going to be 70, but can't get the timber size.
Yeah.
It's basically a workbench at that point.
70.
Yeah. So if you think about 3 X's with a bar on the top, separated, and then I was going to have steel frames made to go between each of the legs setups, and in the middle of the X you'd have a stretcher, like a pole stretcher that holds the bottom in place. So when you assemble it at home, you would have a mate help you hold the steel frame in place and screw it into each leg assembly to make the legs up, and then the tops could sit on top of the steel frame, and you'd have a whole bunch of slots cut into the steel frame and screw it up underneath, so the steel frame's holding the panel flat and letting it move. So that was my plan, and I just thought...
So are you saying 2 separate pieces of 2 meters?
Yes.
Yep.
So you've got...
That's a big design. Personally, if I want a 4 meter table, I want a solid piece of 4 meters. If there's a joint in the middle...
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously... I toyed with that, but I was like... Because this client said, well, you make it. You don't have to worry about getting it to me. I'll bring my trailer and we'll just lift it on the trailer. And I was like...
You and 5 other people?
I was like, wait, how are we going to... This is a 4 meter thing. The legs are 150 square. The tabletop is going to weigh a ton, like together as one table. No one's lifting this thing, let alone moving it from your trailer. It's like... I had to kind of consider the fact that I didn't like the idea of one big tabletop, because straight away I was like, how am I even going to flatten it, plane it, whatever? Like I actually considered doing it as one piece and hiring a floor sander and just walking over it with a floor sander to finish it, which probably would have worked. But anyway, it was an interesting design challenge, and maybe anyone listening, if they're still listening at this point, can hit us up with some ideas about how you might go about designing something that size and for an outdoor situation, just as let's see what we can come up with as a group, because it would be an interesting interesting little plan just to see what comes back.
I like this. It's a bit of homework for the group.
Yeah.
Come back and let us know. Yeah.
Yeah, DM us if you're listening and you've got an idea, because just a basic sketch would be kind of cool to see what people could come up with.
Yeah, I'm just trying to picture that as... I mean, you would almost... The tolerances on that in terms of being flat would just be massive, because you can't expect it to be flat at that length.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, because even if you had a big fancy wide belt drum sander, it doesn't go to 1.4. They're typically only 1.3, I think, max. So you can't rely, it's got to be hand flattened, or you split it long ways and have 2 700 wide tabletops, which still wouldn't fit through any of my machines, but would be maybe easy to deal with. But interesting.
I reckon that's what I would do. I think I would put a lineal seam in the middle.
Yeah.
And have it as 2 700 mil wide, I think. Because then, like Robin's saying, I want a 4 meter long table to look like a 4 meter long table, but it would still be just about manageable.
I considered doing that and actually making it a bit like a split top Roubeau bench.
Yeah.
And trying to do something with that gap, either incorporating some way of using it for entertainment purposes or decoration, like putting some kind of flower pot stands in that gap, or just doing something to make use of it as an piece of art, rather than just we split the tabletop in half because it's too big.
Yeah.
I've seen a bench design like that, slightly different, but where you take threaded rod and you separate the boards with
washers or
nuts or something, yeah. And so you can essentially just put it together. Yeah, maybe a bit too industrial.
Yeah, I think this client just didn't want a slatted top, which would have solved a lot of problems.
Yeah, he effectively wants you to defy science. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. An easy one.
But I like those challenges where it's like, okay, we're going against all the norms, but let's just see what we can come up with if we actually think about it.
Cool. All right, I reckon we'll leave it there. So yeah, if anyone has any ideas, let us know, and we'll mention it next show, because next show it's just going to be us again. So yeah, we could talk about it next show as well. Yeah. Cool. All right. So everyone listening, thanks again. If you did enjoy the show, please go ahead and give it a rating on iTunes. It really does help us out. Joey and Bryan, thanks again for hanging out, and we will see you all in the next show.
Sweet. See ya.
See you guys.